Everyone, welcome to the Island Conference. My name is Li Meng. I'm an assistant professor at Vanderbilt University, and I'm the chair for this session. So we have 3 exciting talks for this session. First talk is from Diane Turnshek from Carnegie Mellon University and University of Pittsburgh. She was an invited speaker, and she's a co-chair of Allen Steering Committee. So she will talk about persuasive measurement for environmental justice.
Thank you for the invitation to come and your attention today. I picked a topic that I thought would be interesting, not a topic that I am particularly an expert on. So hopefully we can find our way through this together with lots of questions from the audience. This is Pittsburgh. So in the beginning, I would like to share with you some things about Pittsburgh. Are these supposed to have the, is that, okay, watch talk. Pittsburgh's a mid-sized city in the US. It's not East Coast by the type of people who live there. It's very Midwest. People are slower and friendlier, not like that fast-paced East Coast part. It's got 3 rivers, Allegheny, the Youghiogheny runs into the Monongahela, and the Allegheny run into the Ohio, which then runs into the Mississippi. So it's 58 square miles if you're including all the rivers in the square footage there. My goal has been for the last few years to make a map of the city, a high resolution city map. One of the things about the city, though, is because of the rivers, and anybody who was on the field trip, rivers cut down through the land. So it's 1,200 feet here on Mount Washington, where this picture was taken from. It's 1,200 feet in Squirrel Hill. It's 1,200 feet where I live. It's 1,200 feet at Allegheny Observatory. The rest of it is 500 feet down, 700 feet at the river level. And that makes it difficult to make a good map. Like if it's a grid city, yeah, you're easy. A nice flat grid city, great. This, it's like the roads go every which way, like they just paved the cow paths. So like a point and shoot. Oh, this one. So this is what it looks like. It's got a lot of trees. It's got a lot of parkland, and they have 42% tree cover. So it's also a city where it's not very expensive to live there. The median, and this is 2017 to 2021, but the median of a house is like $150,000, and that's a decent house. Mine was $150,000. The last house I had, and it was a 4-bedroom brick ranch. Like it's not on almost a quarter of an acre. So it's not like a very expensive place to live. Cost of living is down, but it's also, the income is also down. Pittsburgh has a lot of light that is set up for celebration and joy and art. This is the Mattress Factory. It's an art installation with these pixel sticks that are on all night. And they're actually doing a light pollution exhibit coming up in the fall on another building next to this building. So I'm working with them on that one. Here's the Science Center. It's got a big cone of light on top of it. I'm trying not to be snarky here, but I mean, come on. We have a lantern festival. And we have 400 bridges, which people think the girders are just so pretty that they have to light them up, all of them. So we're lighting up the bridges. This is one of the latest things that came out. Each of the bridges is getting a lighting upgrade. And it just feels like I'm working so hard in Pittsburgh, in the city. And it's one step forward and 600,000 little twinkly steps back. It's got nice sky glow. Very. I used to live around this area and I had to move. I couldn't take looking at this all the time. So we got a Heinz Endowment grant written by 5 interns. Never underestimate the power of young people, to do outreach in the city. And I just went crazy. The city tapped me and said, Diane, this is you. So we did so much outreach about light pollution in the city, everything I could possibly think of. Earth Hour was one of them. So this is from that same Mount Washington location. This is before Earth Hour, the last Saturday every March from 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. in whatever time zone you're in. And this is during. Want to see that again? Pretty good. Fountain went dark, the points and buildings and rooftop signage. So it was good. The stadiums, which are just out of the picture, went dark. In the city, we have 500 amateur astronomers, active amateur astronomers, which is one of the biggest places, one of the biggest organizations in the country. And my IDA, or now Dark Skies International chapter for it's a nice group. This is Allegheny Observatory. I started working here in 1981, and it's my absolute favorite building in the world. It's so beautiful, and we are lucky to have it in the city, because if a city has an observatory in it, it is so much easier to be an abatement advocate. So all you have to say is, but the observatory. We had to take the lens out in 1985. This is a 30-inch lens. It's a refracting telescope. That's why it's so long, because of light pollution. So we changed the entire focus. It had been doing astrometry, positional astronomy. And once you take a lens out and change it, yeah, that program's done. We have something like 122,000 glass plates taken before we changed the lens. But astronomers are like canaries in the coal mine. And this is something fun to Google. Abandoned observatories, they're all over because of light pollution. Thankfully, they take out the telescope first and move it west. So here's one in Cleveland, which is right where the eclipse path is going right over. It would have been nice to have an observatory there still. How about this one? Do you know about this one? So this is now completely demolished. It was bought by a private company and or private individual, and they fixed it up and put a pool table where the telescope was, but now it's completely demolished. But that's what happens when you put an observatory inside a city, unless you have a robust community outreach and engagement program. So the city of Pittsburgh, I was like a little chirping bird. I was on the mayor's transition team, and everybody's talking about affordable housing and bike lanes and land banks, and I'm like, what about light pollution? What about light pollution? I'm the only one in a room of 1,200 people on the transition team, but they listened, which was nice. And so now we have dark sky ordinances in the city of Pittsburgh, which only works for the public property and anything that sits on public property. So we're talking about the National Aviary, the zoo, Phipps Conservatory, and Botanical Garden. They are beholden to follow this with everything going forward. Any retrofits, any new buildings. And that was the only way to get this passed quickly and get it by the city council members. And it's a law, 2021. It's a law now. This is the guy who did it, the Honorable Mayor William Peduto. But then he lost the election. And so I have only just met Mayor Gainey, and we didn't get a chance to sit down and talk yet. The problem is, when you do this, as you probably know, it takes a lot of effort to get enforcement to happen. Pittsburgh's got different priorities now. You've seen these, right? The sinkhole bus, the bus that, what does this tell you about Pittsburgh? Don't ride buses. It's like, um, we have a big landslide problem with the extra rain from climate change. We have a lot of roads that are collapsing and sinking and things. So infrastructure is big. Both of those mayors agree that infrastructure is big, and we just hired a team to do a design for 44,000 streetlights. They're called the Efficiency Network, a terrible name in my opinion, because their acronym is 10. So we hired 10 by giving them $2.4 million to actually do a design for all the streetlights to be changed to LEDs. This made it into the transition team report. Mayor Gainey signed off on it. I think he's going to follow through with it. We shall see how things go into the future. We're also looking a little bigger because Pennsylvania has close to 2,000 municipalities. Sometimes it's the mayor who decides about the streetlights. Sometimes it's an EAC. Sometimes it's city council. You don't know who's going to do it. And so there's zero way one person or even a small team can go to all these places and really get them to listen to us about changing their streetlights to the proper LEDs. So we're working with senators across the state, which worked pretty well. We got a proclamation. Well, there was a proclamation put in last year, and these 6 senators, plus now there's 8 senators that are on board. They're across the state and across political parties. So it is definitely Republicans, Democrats, doesn't matter. This is a feel-good proposal. We're going to try to do it at the state level to get ordinances put in place for city or for state property, state roadways. I've always gone with this because being an astronomer, this sounded reasonable to me. But I've learned here today that this is probably the least persuasive argument for people who live in cities and don't see stars and don't even know what stars are, the Milky Way. So I'm going to back burner that and pick on a topic that is really near and dear to everybody's heart, is people and people's health and well-being. If you don't know where Pittsburgh is, let's just zero down here, right? East Coast. It's one of those dots. We've got 80% of the people or more living in cities, can't see the Milky Way. When I first started teaching astronomy, it was 100% of the people, 100% of my students knew what the Milky Way looked like. I just recently took another survey and it's down to 11% in my classes that have ever seen the Milky Way. So we look at a city map. This is why I need a high detailed city map, because you can't see anything in something like this. And I want to know, when Pittsburgh changes the streetlights, will the ring around the city where people can see the Milky Way outside of it and they can't see the Milky Way inside of it, if that will change? And if it shrinks, if that ring shrinks, then I can calculate how many people live in that area, and then I can make a statement that the press will pick up on, that X number of young people can now see the Milky Way from their homes. This has been going on a long time, that people have recognized that there is a disproportionately high and adverse human health, environmental effects of their actions on minority and low-income populations. People have internalized that. People know that. This is 94. The Sierra Club put it much more succinctly. I really like this this wording. Does anybody know who wrote this? Is it Diana, maybe? Give you a sec. It is important for wellness for people to have the ability to be in dark places. Darkness has value, and we all have a right to starlight. That is an inalienable right for humans. So I gave a TEDx Pittsburgh talk at one point, and the night before, the TED people came to me and said, "Oh, no, 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 you can't say that. You're not a medical doctor." So if anybody's ever watched my 2015 TED talk on light pollution, I'm up there and I go, "Well, I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't, but I'm not sleeping with the lights on." Studies are underway, is usually how I phrase it. But look at this. I mean, this is a hockey stick if I ever saw one. I just went on PubMed, Googled artificial light at night, and whoop, look how many papers. Over six, it says right there, 1660 papers last year. So it's really taken off. This is another really old, and the language is a little creaky, but it's important. What is the judge of a society? It's how they take care of the people in it, all the people. It's an environmental justice issue. So we know that clean air, clean soil, clean water, we know those are environmental justice issues. But we've been talking a lot at this conference about the sky above is part of the environment. And when you consider the value of the darkness, this has to ring with that other the other discussions of environmental justice. It has to be added to that toxic mix of chemicals. This is a paper, if nobody has read this, definitely this is the best paper out there on the subject. So there's another thing that's cropped up lately, and that's biophilic cities. So biophilic cities are having nature in cities so that people feel better. And there's a lot to this on the Biophilic Cities website. And they actually asked me to talk about light pollution, which I'm thrilled about because it's not always that environmental groups include this in the mix like we would hope. But if you consider urban life as having plants, then you are also including animals. And that is making everyone healthy, feel healthy, actually be healthier. And that light pollution affects all those animals, which we've seen, right? I don't expect you to read this, but this is a very interesting paper. If you look at the first column, it's the individual is affected, right? We've seen that every single plant or animal studied is affected by light pollution. I didn't say adversely affected because it's hard to know. So mostly adversely affected, but the individual is affected, which means the entire population is affected, which means the species, the community, the food web, the ecosystem. We're all connected. It's all connected. So what we're doing if we're advocating for darker skies, darker areas, it's the effect is ballooned. This is one of the people at CMU, and as Veda, it just shows that the efficiency of LEDs got fast. It got better so fast we didn't catch up. Nobody could catch up to how good they were. And what that means is the social aspects of it have still not caught up. People are still thinking of more light is better, and it's celebration, and it's progress. Whereas, yeah, we have to have a little cultural shift there and recognize that, excess lighting has other parts to it. Sometimes there are communities, minority communities, communities that are underrepresented in the government that are targeted by law enforcement and are twice as bright. So we're trying really hard to, just in this one case study of a middle-sized city, to get a good map and then run it past the census tracts. So we don't use neighborhood blocks or neighborhoods or zip codes. You use census tracts because then you've got all the income and all the how many people are renting in that area. You've got all the data you need. So get a good measure of the light in an area and then compare it to all the census data. So that's what we've been doing. The ISS, the astronauts are taking pictures for me, well, for my students. You can just ask them. I said that to somebody and they were like, what? You can just ask them? Yeah, there's a form on the internet that you just fill out. And they don't do it right away. It took 5 years before they took their first shot, but goodness, we were delayed putting in the streetlights. So these pictures are amazing. The portal here has whatever you need to pull out pictures that they've taken of any area. This is one they specifically took for me, but this has a little smoke in it and also this dark arc. This is not like the apocalypse. This is the camera lens reflected in the window. So this is what I want. This is what I want the people at the Efficiency Network to come up with. I want narrowband, amber or something without a blue spike in it. And I think the technology's there. They should be able to do this. The money isn't there yet. The $2.24 million was just for a year's study of the lights. So we'll see how that goes. But we are getting a lot of infrastructure money. Steve Quick and I got funding from Metro 21, which is a group that redirects foundational money, and it's for using technology to make life better for people who live in cities. So this is how we bought all our spectrometers and drones and paid for all the helicopters and all this stuff. You might have seen Steve Quick's part of the LED streetlight research projects 1 and 2. I don't know if anybody's seen those. They're 80-page free tomes on the internet about streetlights. So we started with a really simple thing. Let's take our iPhones and just go all over the city. That's me, Star Lady, and take some readings and see where it's dark so we know where to go. Because our study, I wanted to go to the darkest place in each area, which means cemeteries and parks and playgrounds at 3 a.m. with the shot spotter on so we know when to leave. Shot spotter it's a software that tells you where there's been shots fired in your area. So some places it was sketchy. It was like I'm there with my student and just stick your arm out the window. I'm not even stopping the car, but it was fun. There are a lot of people playing basketball at 3 a.m. I don't know what that is in the dark. So we're trying to make the maps, and it's really hard because you're guiding freshmen, usually students, to make a heat map. I realize now after seeing some of the beautiful pictures that we saw that it has to be a 3D map, and the points you can't make them blend like that because lights change faster than that in the city. Here's the Bortle scale as you've all seen it. Yes. Here's the Bortle scale as we use, because we picked this one 4 and Milky Way, those two columns, they come together. The Milky Way is only visible well above the horizon. And it doesn't really have much structure to it. That's the one that we used when we put the outlines around the city to be like, see the Milky Way inside, don't see the Milky Way, or see the Milky Way outside, not inside. But we did this for every city in the world. So you can see your own city on the website for the CMU Sky Glow class. Is it accurate? Yeah, it will be. We have to go take our test photometers out there and put them on the border. That's my goal. We had sky quality meter data, the test photometer data. Allegheny Observatory has an all sky camera, and it's been running for years and years and years. One of the problems with the data is that there are tennis courts near the observatory where the lights are off at night, obviously, right? Except for somebody figured out how to jury rig it and they would turn them on at 3 in the morning and play tennis. So our data is inconclusive. We'll have to run this one more time. Here we're just running exposure time versus time. Did the sky get brighter? Put all the images in there. It doesn't matter if it's cloudy or clear or anything. If you put 12 years of data in there and you just do exposure time, which is variable, versus time, you should see a slope. And we will do this one more time, taking out the nights with the tennis court lights. So I just found this random image on Reddit. I just thought that was so pretty. But it's really a remarkable visual city that's easy to spot, right? Because to the rivers, it's very easy to see Pittsburgh. So then we went on a plane and we went two runs. The first run is a little high, a little fast. Everything was little ovals. Didn't like that. So I sent him out again. This is one of the robotics professors who owns a plane and volunteered to bolt the camera under the plane. And it came out really nice. The second time, those are like little nice circular spots. He flew all over the city in a lawnmower pattern, which was what we were trying to get. I like that he took stadiums because, oh, look at the resolution. It's so obvious when you're looking at lines like that. But he didn't do a really good job at the lawnmower pattern. Like, you wouldn't pay your grass cutter to do that, right? But, still, it was good. It's not the way to do this size city, in my opinion. We tried drones. I love these Mavic 2 Pros. But the trouble was we want to go in the winter when the trees don't have leaves, when it's not snowing, it's not wet on the ground, there's no moon, and it's really hard because the drone batteries don't last very long when it's freezing cold and your fingers are freezing cold. My students are doing this obviously because you just need a drone operator nearby and then anybody can fly the drone. You realize that, right? And we got blanket permission. This is Mike Lincoln. He got blanket permission for me to fly my drones anywhere in the city I wanted, whenever I wanted. That is unheard of. And I was very grateful to him. The only place we couldn't go is over here on the left. There's a prison. We got really yelled at when we tried to fly over the prison. But this is a nice way to describe it, like put it on top of Google Earth, the night maps and the day maps. This is campus. That blue building there is the Hunt Library by the Hunt Foundation. And down the little jewel at the bottom, that is Phipps Conservatory and Botanical Garden. I send this picture everywhere. And I got an email from the managing media person at Phipps, and he said, will you stop sharing that picture with the press? It makes us look bad. Of course we use LEDs. That means we're green. We're a greenhouse. Totally missing the point. I don't know how to answer that. But on this upper road, we changed out a few of the streetlights. We put in Philips and Cree and Lumicant lights, streetlights, and we measured all different temperatures, and we measured with the spectrometer the bounce, and it was an interesting study, but we should have opened it to the public for their opinion, which we didn't do. Haroon is the one who offered to do a drone flights over the city. He would be wonderful if you have a smaller city or a smaller area. He is very accomplished and not very expensive. So if you have a small area that you want a drone nighttime footage of, I would hire him. These are the guys who are going to do ours as soon as I get funding. Cherokee Helicopter. They do movie shoots. So they're coming in over the whatever. So that's who's going to do it. But for the documentary, the ZDF German documentary that Sibyl was in, they put me in this helicopter. They took off the wings in February where it was freezing cold and put me in this helicopter with a camera around my neck, hanging out, taking pictures. Yeah, that was fun. more stadiums. Oh, look at what our resolution is. Empty parking lots. I was taking lots of pictures, empty parking lots, because these are what I use to persuade governments and people that this is unnecessary. Empty streets, empty parking lots, brilliantly lit up things. This is Carnegie Mellon. The library is not blue right now because the colors shift on it, but you could see all the stadiums. It's one of the brightest places in the city. And I guess we did a dark skies conference there, which was really nice one day. We had people from medicine, professional amateur astronomers, like across the board, groups of people come and talk for one day. And I thought that worked very well. This is the library. I sicked a student on them. He talked to Todd Hunt himself, and they agreed that library is obnoxious and we should do something about it. But unfortunately, the student had to take a class from a university professor. That is the highest level of professor, university professor, internationally known, who designed the Hunt Library. And that was where that project stopped. She was like, no, we're not changing anything. So this is my CMU SkyGlow class for, it's a free research class for students every summer about light pollution. And so this is the results of when Kevin Wren and I went out and took measurements all over these 90 neighborhoods in the city. What he found was that the only thing that correlated with smaller, with more light in the city was age. Younger people were in areas where there is more light, which totally makes sense. There's an eds and meds corridor, educational facilities and medical institutions. And so that whole corridor, if people are afraid of being sued, maybe I just lit up to the moon. Or I do have students that come from Bangkok and Singapore and I don't know, Beijing, and they don't know dark. So they get to CMU and they're like, wow, this is so scary. So scary. You can see everything. But the universities have to listen to their student population. So that's the only correlation that we actually saw. I have more students that are working on video games, and this is almost my last slide. We have a virtual reality game that they took to Games for Change in New York City. You're a bird, you're flying over Mount Washington down into the city in this flock, and then you get disoriented by the lights and you crash and you die. There's no way out of this game. It's a Kobayashi Maru. And then the end screen comes up and it's like statistics about how many billion birds die. But now this fall, we're working with 2 other teams, fall and spring, of 6 grad students each to make another VR game where we're doing noise and light pollution together. And I think it creates empathy when they see how an animal, a cute little animal like a shark, how that is affected by noise and affected by light. So this was our run. I'm going to go through the last ones like super fast. I meant to, because what I'm trying to show is you can do anything to get you into communities where they are being, disadvantaged communities, where they are being twice as bright as maybe an affluent neighborhood somewhere. And this was my path in, was to curate space art galleries. I thought it was fun. I had no idea what I was doing, but nobody cared. And I had money from grant money. And so we made beautiful space art galleries. The TED Talk. So these are some of them. It's a community that is already linked together. It's a community of people who all talk to each other. Hundreds of people would come through the galleries. We did space crafts like needle felting planets and making lunar phase necklaces and spray painting planetscapes. And you can see there's, I don't know if you can see it, there's flyers from the International Dark Sky Association that I would hand out when people came through the galleries. And it was just simple to be like, you like this? You think this is pretty? You want to see some of this stuff? I got something for you. And then I'd hand them a flyer. So these were engaging community exercises to try to reach people where they live and talk to them about about stars. And this was the writing community. I tried to get the writing community to write me stories about light pollution, and there were some nice ones. Peter Pan comes down to Earth. He gathers up the lost boys. He's going second star to the right, straight on till morning, and he can't because of light pollution. So these were science fiction stories. So that's what you do. You get a team together, talk to everybody, and you just wait because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So thank you.
Thank you, Dan, for the great talk. Now we have time for one quick question. Yes, over there.
Hi, Daphne Chevalier, University of British Columbia. That was so interesting. Thank you. I'm wondering, recently the right to a healthy environment was ratified at the UN. There's been some indication that it's pretty helpful, although it's not legally binding, in providing a basis in some like pollution and climate litigation. I guess conflicts maybe is a controversial way to put it, but I'm wondering whether light pollution has been discussed in those terms at all, especially in Pittsburgh specifically.
Sorry, what was the very last line? If light pollution has been discussed, what?
In those terms, especially in Pittsburgh.
Right. I was aware of that. That is wonderful that we've got some language on the books. That was long in coming. Jessica is probably the one that can answer this better than me. But in Pittsburgh specifically, there's a council of mayors that we've been very active in. It's mayors all over the world that get together and discuss these things. And it's hosted, I think, by the UN. And that kind of level from highest, it doesn't go to country, it goes from the highest down to the mayoral level. Who makes the decisions about these things? So it is an important piece of literature. I'm not privy to the backroom conversations, but I believe, yes, that's the way to go, is to have some language on the books and then use it. Thanks, Daphne.
Thank you, Dan.
I am Carrie Ann Adams from Colorado State University. My question is for Diane. So your talk was titled Persuasive. No, I can't remember. But the question was, what do you think is the most persuasive image or metric or fact or idea that can really convey to people the importance of reducing light pollution?
Some of the pictures where there's an incredible difference in one area and another area, those are what I'm shooting to collect right now. I've got a lot of ground pictures, but from above, if I can show an area that is, the houses are back from the road, there's a lot of trees, nobody's getting light directly in their windows, the streets are all shielded lights, and then sometimes it's right across a major street. There's an area where everything's just lit up. And that's what I'm looking for. I think those are very persuasive. Thank you. I want to say hi to the virtual audience too. All of us, hi.
Hi, Carolina again from Berlin, Germany. I have a question to Diane and one to, sorry, I can't pronounce your name, so to the Greek doctor. So the first one, in addition to the last question to Diane, you did exhibitions and so on. What was your most impressive experience in working with the people outside?
I'm working with the Disabled American Veteran Hospitals, and we have put an observatory on the grounds of the Heinz campus, which is a huge, hundreds and hundreds of beds for disabled American veterans. And we put the observatory there because they're pretty isolated, especially during COVID, and there was a lot of depression ranging among the vets. And being able to go outside and talk to astronomers and amateur astronomers at their observatory and learning how to see beautiful things in the sky, I'm feeling that like it's turning things around and that there's not as much depression. It's not a study, but just my impression of it. We had to make the campus darker, and the people who were in charge, because we built the observatory there, they were much more amenable to like, get rid of that light and shield that light. So I think that's been one of my most pleasurable outside community engagement activities, and I'm hoping to make a difference there. Most of the vet hospitals around the country now are taking up our start, and they're thinking about building observatories on all of them. So it's cool.
Thank you. And this concludes our session. So thanks for all our speakers for the talk and discussion. Hope these talks will inspire you to think more